put you up there so you could have the mic, but
No, it's fine.
we'll be super comfortable.
Yeah. No, this is great. So this is video class, right?
So it's the business of videography.
Business
So
of videography.
These are
Okay.
both are videographers, and this class is taught. This is the business class for the videography students. So.
Okay. Cool. What year are you guys in? You just
Junior.
You're a junior, and you're okay.
She's
Nice.
almost
Yeah. Awesome.
You got the spring, right? Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I was in y'all's position once. I was born and raised here in Nashville, so I could pick up on a little bit of southern slang, you know.
Okay,
And
there you go.
yeah, I was actually one of the few. I'm one of the few nowadays.
Yes.
But yeah, I was born and raised here. I actually joined the military when I was. My name's Sean, by the way, Sean Climer, and but yeah, right out of high school, kind of worked for a few years. I've always been interested in movies and loved movies and film and television. Actually, my first love was photography. Black and white and film, and had my own darkroom when I was a kid and learned how to do all that kind of stuff. And then later on in life, kind of fell in love with the movies and everything like that. Like I said, right out of high school, about 2 years later, I joined the military. I joined the Air Force, and I didn't have any way to go to college or pay for college. I knew I couldn't get out to LA without some money or something, you know. And I was like working as like a bus boy for a while here in town. I got a job at a bar. I was bartending and stuff, but it just wasn't making ends meet as far as I felt like the money I needed to be able to go to school and learn what I needed. And in here in town at the time, which was like, I want to say 2003-ish, a while ago, wasn't much going on here in Nashville, film-wise, video-wise. It was country music videos, you know, that was about it. Nowadays, there's a lot more. They got a few other things going on in town nowadays. Plus, that show Nashville was here for a while, which helped. Which now I know all these pharmaceutical health companies, all this other stuff has moved into town. So there's tons and tons of like corporate video, and that's where all the money is. Tons of money in corporate video. So it's not quite as creative, you know, as film. It's not as fun, I would say, but the money's there if you want it. So yeah, corporate videos here now with all the HCA and all the big health companies, and Oracle will be moving here soon, so I'm sure there'll be even more opportunities for that because Nashville just keeps growing and growing. But there wasn't much here at the time. There was only country music videos. I remember I worked on a Kenny Chesney video and a Toby Keith video, and I did a few things. I kind of jumped around. I started out wanted to being like a cinematographer, like a DP, and I just still love that. So I started out kind of as a good friend of my dad's has worked here in the business for like 30, 35 years. He's worked in Hollywood. He's done a lot of stuff. He's a key grip, which is kind of, if you're not familiar with that, is kind of like the DP's right-hand man, kind of setting up all the lighting and get everything, set up for him and everything like that. So I worked under him for a while here in town, and that's when I worked on all those music videos and stuff like that. But like I said, all that work kind of, like, it was there if I wanted it, but I knew it wasn't. I didn't know when I was going to be able to kind of move up the ladder per se, or how long it was going to take. Considering my dad's friend was a key grip and he had been that for over 30 years, he probably had opportunities to move up, but I don't know. So that's when I decided to go to school. And MTSU at the time had a decent, I would say, video production kind of program. So I went down there. And did that, and it was okay, I'll say. They had all the facilities and stuff, but as far as the teaching goes and the professors, is kind of like my main professor was like a producer for like the Dove Awards, I think, which is like so he was, he had some experience, and stuff like that, but there's kind of like two main areas I could go into there, which was kind of the multicam or single cam. And I was kind of more interested in the single cam because that's more along the lines of doing like, feature films and stuff like that. Multicam's kind of more of what they do, and broadcast television, unscripted or scripted television. You know, they have multi-cameras now, which some movies do a lot of multicam now, but back in the day it was mostly single cam. But so that was that. I went and got my degree, and that was after I was in the Air Force for almost 7 years. So I got in the military, was in the Air Force for almost 7 years, traveled, did all that kind of stuff. Then I came back and went to school at MTSU because I joined the Air National Guard I was active duty for 6 years, and then that last year I was only guard here in Nashville. So did that, and then right afterwards I just kind of up and decided, like, I'm not doing this. I'm going to LA. I'm just going to screw it. I'm just going to go out to LA and just try and just see what happens. With no connections, no nothing. So I just drove out to LA and got a job within a month as like a PA, like most people. You can always kind of start out kind of low on the totem pole. So I got a job as a PA and a runner on working on production sets and stuff. And so I did that for 6 months, actually, and then I lucked out and I got a job as a junior account manager at a post house there in Burbank, California. And the account that I worked under was the 20th Century Fox account. So I went from in Nashville working on basically music videos to going out to LA and going directly to 20th Century Fox feature films. So first couple of titles I worked on was like 12 Years a Slave, Maze Runner. There was they're all kind of blending together now, but I can remember those were like from the first two I worked on. All the X-Men movies were going on at the time that Fox was putting out, so I was working on those that Bryan Singer did. And then shortly thereafter, the senior account manager left, so then the account became mine after about a year. So then I was the senior account manager there, and it was just good because I kind of learned a little bit and developed and kind of figured out what the client liked, and then I developed a really good relationship with Fox. So I continue to do that, and there's just a lot more that goes into that job, especially because it's kind of a loaded title. Account manager is, especially in television production or in post production, because it you think you're just handling the account, and if you read the job description, it kind of just reads like you're just the middleman between the post house and the production studio, so 20th Century Fox. But it's so much more than that, because the post house I worked at wasn't a boutique post house by any means, but there's always some reason to be short staffed wherever you're at, unless you work at some huge company in LA like Deluxe or Photochem or somewhere like that that's been around for 30 plus years, and and it's all kind of getting to the point now where it's like all the other production studios, whereas like 20th Century Fox now it became pretty much Disney. They bought them out a few years ago, and it just seems like they're all kind of doing that. You got your Netflix, and you got Amazon, and you got HBO, which is under Warner Brothers, and then you got Fox, which is under Disney, and then Disney, and that's and Universal is kind of, they've shrank and just shrank and shrank and shrank over the years, but they're still going along.
These guys may know more about it than I do, but can you kind of describe what an account manager or senior account manager does?
Yeah.
So you're a liaison between the production house and then the studio. So
Yep.
what do you kind of a day to day? What do you do mainly in that role?
So day to day is I kind of put out fires. That's what kind of like I would say, like, because there's some kind of fire as the business they call it, they kind of put out every single day. So the production company will call us and they'll be like, oh hey, I need a rush for this title to be made into a, like they'll deliver a ProRes or something, like a ProRes file to us, and then they'll say, okay, well we need this transcoded to this, and they'll give us the specifications, and every studio has their own specification sheet. They have their own, what they call a rate card. So they have their own rates. You don't make up the rates. they have their own rates. If you want to work with them, you go by their prices, and if you don't, then you don't work. So it's they make the rules. The studios make the rules, and every year it seems like the rate card goes 10% lower and lower and lower. And they're like, hey, we can always pull our work and go somewhere else. So that's just the business. It's how it's always been. When there's a writer's strike, it's like which there almost was just one last week. Yeah, and then Saturday they settled it, so we're good to go there. But there for a while, for about 2 weeks, we're getting pretty worried because if that happened again, then like all the shows would go on hiatus, everything would cease to all the production would stop, and we'd kind of just sit around and watch reruns of everything for the next year. Like I think it happened back in, I want to say 2010, 2011 is the last. Yeah, it was a big one, and it lasted for 5-6 months, I think. Yeah. So, and that was like right before I moved out to LA. But yeah, we were worried it might happen again, but we don't have to worry about it now. But so, day to day in my job is I get to work. I'm in constant communication with production studios, and then depending on kind of what facility you're at, you might have a lot of people underneath you at the post house or wherever you're working, or you may only have a few. When I first started out when I had the Fox account, I only had a couple of machine room guys that kind of worked underneath me, and we had an operations team which is kind of supposed to handle all the work orders that I put in for the work every day, and they're supposed to kind of handle it and assign it to the machine room guys, but they kind of had their own thing going, and it was kind of like that before I got there. So I kind of would just type up my own work orders. So they would so basically, let me back up a little bit. Fox would basically send over what they call a purchase order, which would have all of the work laid out and itemized for billing and everything like that, exactly what they wanted. And then they would have a due date on there. I would have to kind of go down the list and kind of figure out what needs to be done first and prioritize everything from first to last. And because some stuff might take 30 minutes, some stuff may take 2 weeks to get done, depending on what it was. If they wanted something dubbed in another language and then that delivered, then that there's a lot more work into that than just transcoding a file to something else and just uploading it. So it kind of depends, but basically prioritize from first to last, and then you make out the work order, and then I would hand it to the machine room guys, tell them exactly what I wanted, and they would kind of give me a timeline as when it could be done, and then I'd kind of just from there and keep doing that for the most part all day long, and be in communication with the production production company, kind of give them a timeline as to when it'll get done. Then they'll come back, and then there's always something else that needs to be done. Like I said, there's always some kind of rush or something that needs to happen throughout the day that you kind of have to take that work order and kind of prioritize it and put it in front of everything else and tell them, okay, scrap all this, put it on the side burner for now, do this, and then go back to that. And then there's also the problem with quality control, which in the business we just call QC. So everything is pretty much QC'd, or at least what they would call a 5-point spot check, which is basically where they pick out 5 spots on the total duration of the, whether it was on a tape, which back in the day would be like HD Cam or HD Cam SR, which now everything is on files now. So basically you would just put everything out on the timeline there on Final Cut or Avid or Premiere or whatever they're using. Everybody uses different stuff out in LA especially. All your big post houses, for the most part, are still using Avid, believe it or not. But Avid is so old school, in my opinion, it's so easy to learn like that compared to like Final Cut now or Premiere. Like once you learn, basically they're also similar now, whether it's Final Cut, Premiere, or Avid, or even like Sony Vegas, if people still using that. I mean, it's once you learn one, you pretty much know them all. It might just take a few minutes to get used to it, or you kind of just dabble around and play around with it for a day or so, and then you got it. but it's kind of a whole process. There's always some kind of fire to put out, so that's always happening. Account manager is I'm used to it, but most people would probably say it's a pretty stressful job. And if you're not used to dealing with clients, they can be kind of high strung depending on who they are. Like, I've dealt with Fox, I've dealt with Disney, which is by far the worst, and then which now Fox is Disney, so it's the same people. And then now actually, I'm account manager now actually for a company out in LA, working remote from Nashville, which was not possible even remotely before the pandemic. Yeah, that never happened. Like, you had to live in LA if you wanted to do that kind of work. But I made enough connections and know enough people that they feel comfortable with me working from here. So now I'm account manager for a place called Visual Data Media Services in Burbank. And they're kind of up and coming. They've only been around, I think, for 10 years maybe or so, but they're like, their CEO won best CEO in post-production like business last year. So it's kind of an up and coming business, and I'm one of the account managers. We have 3 because that's how much work there is on the Amazon Studios and IMDb TV, which is a platform that Amazon acquired, I think, a year ago. That's now underneath their wing. So that's what I'm doing right now. But I've worked mostly, I would say, in the past 12, 13 years. I've worked mostly as an account manager or project manager. When I left the first post house that I worked at in LA, in Burbank, when I was under the Fox account, I worked there for 3 years, and then Fox kind of stole me away, and I actually went to go work for Fox, and I worked on the studio lot there in Fox at 20th Century Studios in Century City. And so that was kind of a pretty cool, experience. Every day you get to walk around the Fox lot. You see all the productions going on. Key and Peele was worked in the production studio right next to us. So, oh yeah. So you walk out and you'd see them in their costumes. They'd have on their different, garb every single day. One of them being whiteface or something one day, and then the next day they'd be doing something else. And it was always it was interesting every day. It made it interesting. Walk around the Fox lot. If you watch Always Sunny in Philadelphia, it was one of my favorite shows. I love that show. Those guys, their writers' room was basically right across from where I park. So I saw Glenn Howerton and Charlie Day and all those guys just about every day going to work and whatnot. So that was always pretty cool. Just working on the studio a lot. And but when I worked at Fox, I was a project manager, which is a little bit different. So in LA, you're either working on the vendor side or you're working on the client side. So if you're working at a studio, you are the client. You get, pampered. It's like I got taken out to eat all the time. People always want to take me out to eat, take me to bars, take me, whatever, and because they're trying to.
You do business with Fox, right?
Yeah.
That's the idea, right?
Oh yeah. Trying to sweeten me up, So yeah. Basically, Fox would come down the pipeline. Okay, we are about to do this project, and we need to send out bids for this work. So basically, if they want to, and most of the time this is while the movie is being made, probably year and a half in advance, prior to it even releasing in theaters. They'll come down the pipeline and they'll say, okay, right now we want to make this movie in 25 languages. But they will have it dubbed, which is where you actually audibly hear them speaking in another language, or subtitled, where they're still speaking in English and then you'll just read the subs at the bottom. So they'll want it dubbed, they'll want it subtitled, they'll do different audio for each one. They might do 5.1 Atmos surround, the Dolby Digital. They'll do 2.0 stereo. They'll do mono. They'll do discrete files. They'll do everything that you can possibly think of. And
that's the different specs for different markets, right?
yeah,
So if you're in mono, it might be at a place that isn't going to have high fidelity, right?
exactly.
You're just gonna,
It's for all these other venues overseas and whatnot. So you're going to be making files, and in LA, the standard for feature films is the frame rate's 23.98. So as like most people, if you got a consumer, camera or video camera or whatnot, you're going to be shooting in, most of the time I'll probably say 30, if you just standard across the board, it's 30. Some people may prefer 24. Or nowadays, a lot of people are shooting 60, and if they want to do slow-mo especially, then they can shoot in 60 and they can go down to 30, and it'll really, you won't have any kind of rolling shutter, you won't have anything kind of like that. It'll be really smooth. So that's kind of what a lot of people are doing now, but 23.98 is basically standard across the board for feature film, so they'll deliver files in that. And they'll do 25, which is PAL, which is standard for Europe and Asia and Australia, basically everywhere but here. Basically anywhere but the West. So we do all that. We do the different languages, which anything that's made in a different language, whether it's subtitles, audio, dubbing, anything like that, is all considered what they call localization. So, and that's a whole nother business all on its own that there's a ton of money into, which there's a couple of companies out in LA that have just started up recently in a few years that are already at the top of the market just because that's all they specialize in. So these one-stop shop types of houses like Photochem and Deluxe or Roundabout and all these other places out in LA, Company 3, these are kind of like your one-stop shop places that can do everything. Those are becoming less common every single year. Nowadays, more or less, you kind of have places that just specialize in stuff, and they kind of just kind of spread out the wealth, basically.
So the houses that specialize in the dubbing and doing different languages, so they probably have a host of actors and actresses, right?
Oh yeah, on call.
That are on, that are either bilingual or trilingual or whatever, and they'll go on and have the script, and they'll just do the best they can, right, to try to match the voices and just dub in the
and with your older studios like Universal, Paramount, Fox, Disney, Warner Brothers, they kind of all have their own people that they've used, and a lot of them are local to LA or in the country somewhere. Whereas nowadays, your newer studios, like Netflix and Amazon, everybody that's doing their own stuff now, even Hulu and everybody else, they like to they outsource a lot of stuff to the local market, which is kind of good because it saves them money, but at the same time it's kind of hard, especially to get perfectly right kind of their specifications for what they're asking. So they don't ask too much of them. They just ask that they do it in a certain frame rate, a certain codec, and then they kind of just take it, and that's when it'll get sent back to LA, and then they just kind of figure it out, put everything together. But a lot of stuff nowadays, as far as languages, especially the dubbing, is done locally in country for whatever country that they're wanting to preview in. But
you're seeing some of that. So Amazon, Hulu,
and Netflix, yeah.
they're all going head to head with the major studios. They've been doing it, right? And so
Oh yeah.
you're seeing them being less LA local, LA focused. They're looking at more of a worldwide reach, right? And so,
Especially Netflix kind of started it, and Amazon is right on their heels. Yeah.
I bet Amazon's doing they have a lot of money, and I bet they're doing a lot of projects. A lot of things are getting greenlighted, right?
Like
Flush with money.
when I started at this company, there was only one account manager for Amazon, and within the last 4 months, they've had to hire 2 more, and we're actually hiring another one right now. Like that's how much work is like just pouring in from Amazon, and we're not the only house that's doing their work.
Oh,
So, I mean, you can kind of imagine how much work they're putting out. But it's kind of how it works, especially when I was working for Fox, is like all that stuff would come down the pipeline, all the work, and then they would say, okay, we need all this done by this time or by this quarter of this year. And so then we would put out bids, basically. We'd say, okay, this is the work, this is how much it's going to pay. Or sometimes we wouldn't even say how much it's going to pay. We would kind of want them to throw a number at us and kind of see how naive they were, or what, or kind of, like if they would throw back like yeah. So we'd say, this is the work, what will you do it for? And then we kind of just spread it out to everybody, kind of send it out to everybody. And then we'd wait a couple of days. Most of the time, everybody would get back to us within a day or so. Nobody waits too long because they're afraid they'll lose the work. So everybody gets back to you pretty quickly. We'd receive all the bids, and then we kind of get together, have a meeting, and decide who gets what. And like even if this company over here is the cheapest, they may not get the work because we just awarded them work the month prior to that. So it's kind of like you still kind of have to play the game of, okay, well, they just got work. We can't give it to them. We got to give it to somebody else. So it keeps it fair within LA and the economy and everything, and Hollywood, everything. Everybody stays working and getting work and everything like that. They do kind of keep all of that in mind as well. Plus there's unions and everything else. Everything is unionized out there, especially for everything below the line. So it's very, very, I would say, competitive. It's a very, very competitive market. So we send out all the bids, they send the bids back. We pick whoever's going to do the work. And then at that point, as a project manager, I would just be in constant communication with them, kind of overseeing everything. I would write, instead of working at the post house, receiving the purchase orders and then writing the work orders for everything to get done and sending it back to them and delivering it, I would write the purchase orders and I would send it out to all of the vendors. And so I was kind of on the opposite side, which is a very good thing to do in LA, is to kind of work on both sides. So that way you know both sides of the coin. You've done both things. You kind of know how things work. Because if you've just worked on the client side your whole career, then people are just like, oh, you've only worked on the client side. You've never worked on the vendor side. You don't know how this works, this and this and this. It's very political. It's all about who you know. And that's very, very true in LA, is it doesn't matter. Like, man, you could show up out there and you may be able to, I don't know, pull focus better than anybody in the business, but it's all about who you know. It, huh?
True in Nashville too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very relationship.
Oh yeah, and it's just the business.
Your dad, kind of hooked you in with a guy who'd been doing it for a long time, and it's very much who you know in Nashville.
Very much so. As a key grip here, it would have been beneficial for me to do that, but I didn't know how long I was going to be here. I didn't foresee myself being here very long, so I knew at some point I wanted to go to LA, and out there I could get with a bigger and better union, which they have some of the same unions here, but then my life kind of all turned around, and I just happened to I never really intended to get in with like a post-production facility. It just kind of happened, and I kind of fell into it, and I fell in love with it. I started learning a color. So initially I thought maybe I wanted to be a colorist because there's tons of money in that, and it's also pretty creative. You can do some really cool things with that. And so I worked in that for a while. I got trained up in that and did that, and it's also something that's pretty cool. Depending on like what, where you're at, it's almost better to get with a small place in the beginning of your career, because you get to know everybody there. And you get a reputation, and you strike up a rapport with all your coworkers and stuff like that. And sometimes they'll kind of take you under your wing, because that's kind of what happened with me. They just kind of asked me like, okay, well, what are you wanting to do here? Like, what are you hoping to, like, we got this facility. Like, you want to be a sound engineer, or do you want to do coloring, or do you want to be an editor? You want to be an online editor, or do you want to be an offline editor? There's two different ones. It all just kind of depended on what you wanted to do. And at the time, I was like, oh, I want to be an editor. So I started doing that. And then I figured out I had to sit in a room with no windows for like 14 hours a day, pretty much, like just looking at these 2 huge screens, working on this board, and I was just like, I started getting migraines and stuff, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And then, so then I went to coloring, and I was like, maybe color. So I tried that for a while, and all while I was doing the account manager stuff at the same time, I was just doing this. After I got off, I'd go in there and work with them for a couple of hours, and they didn't charge me anything. They were just really cool, nice, down-to-earth people that were just willing to help and teach you, which is really cool. So there is that. If you show an interest in something and they, you're got a good work ethic and you're willing and you're ambitious, then people will teach you pretty much whatever you want to know, which is nice. So I did that, but I just kept getting migraines and stuff, and then eventually I just figured out I can't work in super dark spaces all day, and then that's when I was just like, I'll just stick with what I know, because I was getting good at it anyway. So
you came back to Nashville for personal reasons and didn't really have anything lined up, right?
No, I didn't have anything lined up.
So you came back and you're like, I'm going to help out with my grandfather, and then you got settled, and then you started looking for some of the work that you were doing. When you went to LA, I imagine, so anytime you launch out on something like that, on kind of a leap of faith, right? Pretty scary proposition. How did you go about networking? What was the first thing you did to try to get people to know who you were and what you were interested in doing?
Yeah, so I'll be honest. What helped me out a lot was I was in the military. And just mentioning I was in the military, a lot of people would be like, oh, okay, well, you probably have good work ethic, or you're going to be on time, you're going to be punctual, you're going to be responsible, you're going to, they made all kinds of assumptions, which, some of them may be true, some of them may be not true, I don't, but it's, they just assume things, which helped me, which honestly is what helped me land that first job as a PA. The lady that was hiring, who was the human resources director, her dad happened to be retired Air Force from Andrews Air Force Base in DC. So she was like, "Hey, you're a military guy. We're not even really hiring right now, but I'll hire you I'll put you on as a temp, and I'll put you back in the mailroom, and I'll have you running films back and forth, basically everywhere, all over town." So that's how I got to know LA, and I had to drive around really pretty good out there and learn all the streets pretty quick. Was doing that. And also, it was kind of neat too, because I got to deliver some stuff to some places that some people may not know. Like I delivered a film once to David Fincher's studio, where he writes and everything, his own there, and it's right on Hollywood Boulevard, the most discreet building. You'd never know it. You'd walk right by it like a million times and just be like, "This is David Fincher's," and I walked in, and it's only him and his assistant. He's the one that takes the tape from me. I'm like, all right, cool. Hi, David Fincher, But it was pretty neat, though, doing that. So I got to know and meet some cool people doing that. And then, but it's all about who you know, really, and who you meet and who you make relationships with, and who you choose to kind of.
So the HR person, did you just make an appointment or just pop in and say, hey, this is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't tell you. I was there for, like I said, I got that job within 2 months of being there, because the first month and a half, all I did was email everybody. I'd get on websites and look for who's hiring. I think I subscribed to, I don't know how many, like different websites, like entertainment careers and this and this and that, like so many different websites, in which I have gotten the job I got here in Nashville, actually, as a post soup, I got off of. It was one of those websites. It was either Entertainment Careers or it was Production Hub. I think it was Production Hub, actually.
So
I got. Yeah, so it does work. But it hadn't worked for me out in LA, probably because I had zero experience, basically. I was working as a key grip, here and now in town, and everybody's union out in LA that's doing that. So nobody's going to mess with somebody that's not unionized, because that's just like kind of a lawsuit waiting to happen. So that's why I didn't get a job doing that. But I basically was just emailing and applying online for the first month and a half, and then that just wasn't working. So then finally I just started old school style, printed out a whole bunch of resumes and started walking door to door to everywhere, and just walking in and be like, hey, I'm looking for a job. I'll take whatever you have. I don't care. Here's my resume. as your human resources person here. And after 3 days of doing that, I finally went to a spot right on Olive Avenue, right in the middle of Burbank, called, oh man, I can't even remember the place now. New Wave Entertainment, which now they've kind of changed around now. They've gotten a lot bigger and producing some big time stuff. They do a lot of stand-up specials for comedians and stuff now. But like they did Aziz Ansari's a couple of years ago. They do a lot of stuff now. But that's the place I walked into, and I finally ended up, she hired me, and then I got a job as a temp. And then the word temp, scared me when she said that. So I, it was smart to actually go back home and keep applying like every week. I just kept applying and kept applying and kept applying. And then through Entertainment Careers, I actually got an interview as an assistant account manager, the junior account manager at the post house. Then I went in, and same thing. I'm not telling anybody here to join the military, but it did help me. The guy that I interviewed for, the senior account manager, his dad was retired Navy and a diplomat, U.S. diplomat. So it was like, hey, do you know what this is? You know what a digi is? Do you know what an HDKMSR is? Do you know how to run tape? Do you know how to do this? Do you know how to encode? Do you know how to transcode? Do you know how to work? What have you been working on? You work on Final Cut? Okay, cool. It was basically like a few things like that, because it's like it wasn't just writing work orders. I did a little bit of everything. I had my hands in everything. I was encoding. I was transcoding. I was working the tape room. I would set up QC for our QC people. So I would come in and get their room all set up and talk to them and make sure they have everything. They have their scope set up, have their audio set up, have everything set up, so they could watch and make sure that everything was to specification. I did all of that, plus I wrote the work orders, plus I would do runs sometimes. It was a little bit of, you kind of have to do a little bit of everything in the beginning, and then...
But you learned a lot at the same time.
I learned a ton. Oh yeah, I never would have learned, not even a 3/4 of what I learned if I didn't just say yes to doing whatever and be open to it.
Things that, when I talk, I have, these guys aren't in my class, but I have the last class that they take before they graduate. I have photographers and videographers, and it's our portfolio class, and it's we talk about for jobs, and one of the things is that no one does that anymore. No one goes and just shows up in person, and so everything's done by email, and so but by going in and by being bold and going in, you can make an impression, and then you're actually a human being, right? You're not just you're just not just a resume that comes through an ATS system where they get 200 for one job. I mean, then it's just like a crapshoot on who gets it. So so you present yourself well, right? You communicate well, and they go like, okay, this guy's going to be, if nothing else, he's got a good work ethic based on his military service. I mean, we have military students here. I think that's generally true of them too, is that they are well organized, they're responsible, they generally turn all the work in on time, and so they're very task oriented, right?
Yeah.
So I can see that would be helpful in a lot of jobs, right?
Yeah, and I'll say that much about a lot of places, whether you're trying to be an editor, whether you're trying to be a key grip, or whether you're trying to be a DP or director or whatever. Right. You want to get on it as an AD, whatever. They appreciate that, and a lot of them, most of them actually, don't use recruiters. So a lot of places nowadays are hiring these recruiting companies to hire everybody. There's no way to translate that. You either know the work or you don't. So there's no way a recruiter is going to know the business of that. They're not really going to know. They can look out for something or certain things on a resume, but as soon as they call somebody and they're asking them questions, as soon as they start talking media jargon basically and start throwing all this nomenclature and words at them and phrases, they're not going to know what the hell they're talking about. So they're just going to be like, okay, yeah, sure, But so that's why a lot of them don't use recruiters. So that's another good thing about the business is if, whatever job you want to get into, they're not using recruiters. So most of the time, wherever you're applying to, they're looking at it themselves. So that's another good thing.
When you looked at so this is Chris and this is Kayla. I don't know if you remember the names,
Mm-hmm.
but what did you? We took 2 runs, and I have no experience in it, but just looking at the text and found some. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. It's Weiss Productions. They have sheets for like different budgeted films and commercials, and so we use that kind of as a base.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just downloadable resources we found. When you looked at their first run at kind of like a budgeting for like this Kevin Hart commercial, which is on TV now.
Yeah, I've actually seen that commercial.
Yeah, it's running a lot.
Yeah.
What do you think kind of overall? What were your overall impressions of
The second run was a lot better.
Okay.
It was a lot closer.
Okay.
First run was pretty low.
Okay.
You wouldn't think people charge so much for this stuff, man, but it's nuts.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Like recently, I got hired to do a job because I do freelance stuff on the side. I pretty much do everything. I'm kind of my own audio guy, run video, I edit it, I do color correction, I'll do sound sweetening, I'll do everything. I pretty much know how to do pretty much all that stuff. So I do all of it. I got hired by you ever heard of like something called a rug pad? It's something that goes underneath like household rugs so the rugs don't slide.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I got hired by a company in Smyrna that has a huge warehouse of this stuff, and they hired me to do a commercial for them. They wanted a 60-second spot, and they wanted a 30-second spot, and maybe even a cut down to a 15. And they're like, "How much would you charge for this?" And I'm like, well, and it kind of comes down to a lot of stuff. Like, I'm okay, who's going to be providing the script? Am I going to be providing the script? What are you going to provide me? And they're like, no, we'll write the script, which they didn't end up writing the script. So I ended up charging them more for that because I had to kind of help them with that. So there's a script, and then it's like, okay, who's going to be doing the location scouting? Are you going to be picking the location, or am I going to be doing that? And they were like, no, we have a location in mind already. So I was like, okay, great, which they kind of kept their end of the bargain on that. I didn't have to pay for that up front. They did that. So I didn't have to worry about that. So then it comes down to basically setting up your shots. You have your shot list and everything like that. You kind of figure out doing your pre-scout kind of deal where you go in, have a look at the location, do your walk around, kind of figure out what you want to do and this and that. So there's a lot that goes into it that, unless you're in the business, most people just would never even think of. But I only ended up, because they ran out of money quick, because I told them that, okay, I'm going to shoot this. I'll do a 60-second spot, and I'll do a 30-second spot. And for the budget that you guys have, because they only wanted to pay me $5,000, which is really cheap.
Yeah.
So they were like, I want to do a 60-second spot, and we'll do a 30-second spot. And I was like, the 15-second spot's not going to happen unless you want to add another $2,500. Yeah. And they're like, no, we'll skip that for now. We'll just come back and maybe do a cut down later on or something. We won't do that for now. I was like, okay. So we filmed everything. I found the talent. I did all that kind of stuff. I filmed it. We did all this kind of stuff, and then edited everything. Sent them the preliminary edit, just a rough cut. And they came back, had all these notes, wanted to do all this stuff, and I was like, okay. So I did all this stuff, sent it back. A week later, they sent me back. They wanted to change all this stuff again. And I'm like, okay, now I sent it back. Then I was like, just so you know, like time-wise, you guys only have about, I can only do maybe 2 or 3 more edits on this, and then you're gonna run out of budget. So they're like, okay. So then they sent it back to me again with these notes. I did it, sent it back. So I was like, you guys got 1 more edit left. And they still, basically these people they just couldn't get their stuff together. They didn't really know what they want, which is the problem. So then, long story short, I ended up doing 4 edits on this, which took me maybe 4 hours. The preliminary edit took the longest, this was the rough cut, just putting everything together, looking at all the footage. Then going back, and afterwards they said, okay, we're good with this one. Then they didn't have a card for the end. They wanted me to make a card with with effects and stuff like that. So I went into After Effects and made something really quick and threw it on the end. Like, oh, that's great. How much do we owe you for that? That was never part of the budget, so I was like, 1,000. Then they tacked that on. I mean, you pretty much just throw out stuff and just see what people say a lot of the time. You can kind of see like if they have the money or if they don't. But yeah, so I ended up doing a weekend's worth of work plus an additional maybe 5 or 6 hours, and I made $6,000.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's but with the commercial for the Kevin Hart stuff, I would say it was a little low the first time, yeah, and then the second go around was pretty much right on because it all starts above the line, and pretty much, with Chase, I think is who that was with, the Chase credit card, yeah. It's a huge bank, huge credit card company. They got tons of money. They have their own PR people. They have their own advertising going on. They have their own advertising firm in-house, probably. So they probably had all this drew up in creative. They probably knew from the get-go they wanted a big name. Kevin Hart, not many people bigger than Kevin Hart right now. He's a very popular guy. And that guy's a huge businessman himself. So he's very well off. He knows his stuff. So I would say Kevin Hart probably is not cheap.
Well, Chris found that he had a 3-year deal. Is that what he had?
I don't know how long it was, but yeah.
He had a multi-year deal with Chase.
Yeah.
To do commercials.
And he probably put that together. That dude is smart, man. Yeah, he probably knew early on, like, okay, hey, instead of this being a one-time deal, why don't we do this? Why don't we do 2 or 3 of these things? And you guys pay me this lump sum. And they're probably like, okay. So that was probably handled separately, I would even say. That was probably wasn't even original part of the production budget. That was probably something just handled on the side.
And that's the way we figured it.
Yep.
We're gonna have to get him there. We're gonna have to put him up and feed him and have his entourage, whatever.
Yes.
And so, we were gonna pay him for his appearance fee based on the budget. Okay.
Yeah, and then my guesstimation if he was just to do it as like a one-time thing and charge somebody, you'd be looking at probably at least $250,000.
Okay.
Probably at least $250,000 for probably a day's worth of work.
Okay.
Because that's probably all that was.
Okay.
That was probably 1 day's worth of work.
I would assume.
Because it was one location, it wasn't multiple locations. It was one location outside of that house, right there on the street. They basically probably had to shut down that street one day, hire all the crew, everything like that. All of the, you have your catering company, you have everything there for that one day. So that all kind of goes into it. So you start kind of above the line. You got your producer, you got your director, you got your DP, you got your writer, you got your, I'm probably forgetting some, your editor. Basically everything that's above the line, and then below the line, you got all your crew guys, all your union guys, basically. Below the line that's going to be working camera, working sound, doing all kinds of stuff, the lighting and whatnot, driving, the people that are the drivers, the catering company, everything else basically.
So what we learned is in the class so far is that, because we're in week 7 now, what we learned, we've done a lot of stuff with, you talked a little bit about the corporate video, we talked about that, about having in-house corporate, doing freelance, which you talked a little bit about, and we've learned that the above the line are the costs that you're going to pay regardless, right? And then below the line is the actual, the people that are coming in and doing the production.
Yep.
Right? So that's when you get ready to film. So if you write that, if you're, for example, the commercial did in Smyrna, if you end up writing a script and you pull together a crew, you pull together some talent, those are costs that that they're going to pay regardless. If they decide not to do the commercial, they're going to pay that, right? And then the rest of the money, the rest of the budget is going to be for renting location and hiring a couple videographers, right? And then doing the post production would be below the line, right? All that stuff.
Yep.
So, but somebody's going to pay. If we were talking, the example we used was, like Kevin Spacey in the House of Cards, where they were getting ready to do a 4th season, and then he's found to have been fondling little boys, right? So or teenagers, and so that whole thing. I mean, they had a director set up. They had Robin Penn Wright, I mean, all the actors and actresses booked, right? You have to book them because if you don't, then if they're available, they'll take other jobs, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you got to book them.
Oh yeah,
right?
they're already under contract.
And so if,
Yeah,
they decide not to do season 4 because their lead character is now he's toxic.
Well, that's like Dave Chappelle, right?
Yeah, right.
Everybody remembers back when he did Dave Chappelle's show.
Right.
He got that huge contract and then he disappeared. Well,
He did.
yeah, so then Comedy Central went after him and sued him, and and all this other stuff happened. Yeah, it's because he was already under contract. He had already signed the dotted line. He had already started receiving the money. I think so. It was that was kind of a whole nother deal. But yeah, he didn't care, man. But it's like he chose his mental health over the money, which is good for him. But yeah, no, it's that's kind of how all of that kind of works, I would say, as far as.
So when we were talking about it, none of us knew, so we were just kind of talking it through and just trying to figure out if. So based on your experience, are there any limits you could put on like the talent? Like so we were talking about like how many people would Kevin Hart show up with? I mean, does he have a big entourage like Mike Tyson, or would he just bring like a couple of guys or bring his wife? I mean, so if he's on contract with Chase because of his image, so there's a appearance fee that they're paying. So for $6 million for 3 years, you're going to do X number of things for us, whatever that number is. When he shows up for these shoots, like I don't know if he lives in LA, but say he's got to fly into LA, you got to fly him there. He's going to have to go on a private jet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something like Kevin Hart, and he's not going to stay at the Holiday Inn Suites, right?
No, he's going to want 5-star, 5 diamond. Yeah.
The Beverly Hills.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're trying to manage that production and you're trying to budget it, right, and you allot a certain amount for Kevin Hart, kind of factoring what you think he might cost you to have him there for that day or 2 days, whatever. What happens if he shows up with 15 people and they all want a hotel room at the Beverly Hills? Like,
yeah,
how do you manage that? Do you say this is what we're going to pay, and then the rest is going to be on you?
Pretty much.
People? Is that how you do it?
Yeah, pretty much. Which most of the time, production company will just eat it.
Yeah.
They'll just end up paying for it because they don't want to lose him yeah, they don't want to lose him. So they'll be like, all right, yeah, we'll do this. Which most of the time, good businessmen and good businesswomen don't even do that. Most of the time, they'll be like, all right, well, I got this deal for 3 years. You're doing this. You're going to fly me and my people out. I'm going to be bringing my manager. I'm going to be bringing this person, and then the rest of the people, don't worry about it. I'll put them up. I'll do whatever I need to do. Yeah, like Kevin.
It's a conversation.
Yeah, it's a conversation. You hire somebody like back in the day. You hire somebody like Marlon Brando. It's probably a totally different story because everybody knows that guy's very hard to deal with. That guy has like stories and stories and stories about him. But like Kevin Hart, very easy guy to deal with. He's a good businessman. He knows relationships. He knows how to treat people. He knows how to do stuff. So yeah, you're dealing with somebody like Kevin Hart, then you're gonna get the you're not gonna end up with the short end of the stick. Everything's gonna work out probably with Kevin Hart.
So it's actually within the industry. The easy people to work with, the hard people to work with.
Oh man, everybody! It's such a small town. LA is so huge and it's so sprawled out, but literally everyone knows each other. It's
Could you get on the phone, say you were new to the business, and you get this, you're the senior account manager, you get hired, and here's your new account. And you have the Kevin Hart account. Would you make some calls and try to figure out like what I'm going to be dealing with as far as him? So you could call and say,
yeah,
like,
you do your homework.
You could say like, hey, I just got the Kevin Hart account, and I know you used to have it, or I know you know somebody used to have it. Like, can you tell me some things? Like, he's getting harder, easy to work with, and what kind of entourage he's going to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like MC Hammer, he ran out of money because he had 50 people with him all the time. I mean, and he went bankrupt because he was the guys and the women and the guys he grew up with. Like he brought them all in, and he all gave them things to do, and he wanted to raise, one ship's gonna raise everybody's ship, and he ended up going bankrupt, but,
Yeah, you got your smart people, and then you got,
but
it's.
his intentions were good, like,
Oh,
to
yeah.
help the people that.
There's tons of athletes,
Right.
actors, musicians, everybody that does that, and like the two that come to mind, like you said, like MC Hammer, and then on the other side of the coin, you got somebody like Marshawn Lynch, who has never spent a single penny of any of the earnings the NFL paid him. He's the only money he's spent is from all of his endorsements and deals. Like, that dude is super smart, and he's set for life. But yeah, so you got two sides of the coin. You got that's pretty much what it all comes down to. Like learning early on your finances and what to do with what. And
Right.
but yeah, no, but you definitely do your homework beforehand. Everybody does that, whether it's a director, a casting director. Like, directors will call around, and most of the directors have like casting directors they want to work with, but different production companies, like, they'll call up certain directors and be like, hey, who do you have as your casting director? Are you working with so-and-so again? And they'll be like, well, yeah, we were going to. And like, I'd rather not. Can you work with this person instead? And I'm like, I've never worked with them, but yeah, I'd be willing to. Everybody knows each other. Like, for instance, I would never go work for that company, Deluxe, because I've heard such horrible things about Deluxe my entire career. Everybody I know talks bad about them. Like Disney, I've worked with Disney shortly for a short term. For less than a year, I worked with Disney, and they were huge sticklers, just very hard to deal with all the time. And then not bad people that work there. And if you work for Disney, it's great because you get great benefits, great perks. You're paid well. You get to go to their parks for free and bring your whole family and all this other stuff. So I mean, it's great perks working there, but working with them is another story.
So Deluxe, if they're such a big, and I've seen that name, on a million movies I've watched.
Oh yeah.
So if that's who you're working with, right? So they're probably in a situation where they're such a big dog that that it's a privilege for you to work for them, right? That's probably, and so you may end up having to work harder than you would, somewhere else, because I'm thinking if you leave, we got 5 people lined up to take your job, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you one question. Parker's not here today, and one of the things that he asked, and I just didn't know the answer to, but and that if you look at that Kevin Hart commercial, he was in a cul-de-sac, right, and he's hollering to his neighbors, and these houses or these little cottages, which I'm sure it was filmed in L.A., but like the landscaping is like unbelievable. I mean, like nobody has landscaping like that. Are there houses, are there communities out there that do that so that production companies will use them?
Yes.
So that if you go to pick Burbank, you go to this neighborhood in Burbank, like you could scout it, you can rent this block, and you know how much it's going to be, and you can walk right in and just film it because everything's pristine.
Mm-hmm.
So what Parker was wondering is what he was trying to figure out if you need the budget. They wanted to do it there, but like one house really needs to work on landscaping. With the production, you have to come in and do that to get it to look the way they want it to, or they try to find a location it was already done.
They would like to find a location, and believe it or not, I've heard from other people that I know. I know there are places like that in LA. I've never personally been to any, but I know there are places like that. And some places aren't even real. Like it'll look like that street, and everything will be perfect, but it'll all be set.
Yeah.
The houses will just be like it'll just be it might be like a 2-dimensional house, depending on the angle that you're shooting from. So it might just be the right hand side of the house and the front of the house, and then there's no left hand side or there's no back. Yeah. It's all just 2x4s holding up the. I've seen that, and I know they have that, and sometimes they do that. And then there are also places that there are actually like neighborhoods that are they have it in the HOA when people buy their houses that it is actually, which is like a homeowners agreement type thing. When people purchase their house, that it's in that contract that they sign in that HOA agreement that there's filming going to be there, and that they're not going to be allowed to leave their house or come and go, or they're going to have to stay inside or do whatever on certain days. But they're going to be posted. They're going to be notified in advance. They're going to be And most of these people, these neighborhoods are so, I mean, these people can afford it. And a lot of times the production company would even put them up somewhere else if they can't be there. But
do they also get, if they're filming and they're using their house as a background or their street, do they get compensated?
Mm-hmm.
I would think so.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. If it's in their HOA, probably not.
So the HOA would they take the compensation and benefit the neighborhood?
They'll say, yeah, exactly. They'll say it's for the benefit of the neighborhood because they keep their landscaping so nice, they keep their street so nice. They do everything for them. Yeah, so it always, their yards always look perfect. So they.
We're gonna build a new pool for you.
Yeah. That's exactly. So in some cases yes, in some cases no.
So that commercial could have been a set. It could have been.
I think that commercial, if I had to guess, was not a set.
Yeah.
And if I had to guess, I would say that set was probably not in LA. It was probably in Atlanta. It was probably in a suburb around Atlanta somewhere.
Todd Perry Studios, is that what you were thinking?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Todd Perry Studios?
Yep.
Like, is that where you think that
It could have been. Yeah, it looks a lot like a Tyler Perry set, to be honest. Like the movies, if you watch a lot of those movies, yeah, it kind of looks like that. I wouldn't doubt it. Wouldn't doubt it at all. But yeah, it looks a lot like Atlanta, and Atlanta has become kind of the new Hollywood. I mean, there's so much stuff.
That's kind of where he was thinking.
Oh man, yeah, I know so many people that in the past 3 years that have moved from LA and just gone to Atlanta because there's so much stuff going there. But yeah, I would not be surprised, not one bit. I'm almost probably 95% sure that commercial was filmed in Atlanta.
All right, cool.
Yep. And the same thing happens there. I know for a fact they do that there. They build like on sets and in certain subdivisions and stuff like that, or cul-de-sacs. They do that. They just dress it like that, and it just stays that way.
I know Kayla had a couple questions you want to ask.
Yeah, y'all have any questions? Fire them away. Yeah.
Come on.
First question I have was, I think you already answered it. How did you make your first business connection? And then the second question was, what's the disadvantage of working for other people? Something that happens at every job or most jobs that you've had, specifically in the film industry.
Yeah. You mean like advantages to working freelance versus working for someone? In the beginning, you're probably always going to have to work for somebody just to get enough going on a reel, unless you just know a ton of people and you can put a reel together like that, like real work, like actual clients or whatever kind of, whether you're doing shorts or whether you're making documentary, or that's different. But if you're doing something like for a client, like a Coca-Cola or a Bose or iPhone or whatever, then yeah, you need a client to do that, and you can always go off and make a mock commercial, and just make it look like it. And I've seen people do that, and they pitch to the companies, and they like their ideas, and they like the look of it, and they'll end up, they have hired them. So there is that. But a lot of times it helps to work for somebody at least for like a year or two, and kind of just because more than anything, just to learn the business and learn how it works and people's attitudes and how they are and what they expect, like kind of what their expectations are of you and of other people and things like that. So it helps to work for somebody for a year or two, and then after that, once you have enough to put on a reel, by all means, I would rather be a freelancer any day. If I was doing like video work, like as a director or producer or even videographer, yeah, you'll make so much more money being a freelancer because you can set your own rates. So I would say definitely that.
So the photo industry in Nashville is very, it's changed some, but it's still pretty male dominated.
Mm-hmm.
And so Kayla goes to the West Coast. What is the any disadvantages to going as a female? Is it pretty? My guess would be
it's a lot more progressive now, especially out west.
So.
Here it's different. I'll be honest. Here it's different. It's not as progressive. In Nashville, it's pretty progressive. Davidson County especially, very progressive. But the West Coast is a lot more progressive, and they are a lot more open and even looking to hire women. So it's definitely like even here. For that little boutique place I worked in Nashville, our line producer, our set producer, our main writer, and a few of our assistants. I mean, they were all women. Which he was from LA. The owner is from LA, and our other producer it lives in LA. And then we didn't have that many. I will say we didn't have that many women directors on our roster, but I know they're out there, and I know people use them in LA, especially especially in the last few years. They becoming more and more prominent in the industry, and people are using women a lot more, especially as writers and producers and directors, especially.
I mean, Nashville is changing a lot. It's known to be a relationship town.
Mm-hmm.
Photography, I think that's all I'm going to speak of. And there's a few people that have, a few photographers that have are taking a huge piece of the pie because the relationships, because they've been here a long time. They have relationships with CMA or with predators, and there's 4 or 5 guys that are doing a lot of the really high profile work. And so I know Kayla, she wants to leave Nashville and go to one of the coasts based on just conversations we've had. So just wondering, have you heard, because she's kind of talked about New York and LA. Even though you haven't worked in New York, have you heard anything about New York specifically that
New York's the same.
be the same, right? But both coasts are going to be much more progressive, looking for diverse talent, looking for.
New York's always been more theater based,
Yeah.
but and they still are, because New York's just so expensive to film in.
Right.
But you do have a lot of television shows in New York that have always been based there, and that always will be based there. So you can get a job working on a set on one of those shows as a crew member. But they do film stuff there. It's just not, working in New York is a little bit different because there's a lot more independent, I would say, a lot more independence and a lot more documentaries in New York, rather than like full, feature films and stuff like that. They're filmed there, but none of them are produced there. They're always produced in LA.
Do they have, and I'm sure they do, are there organizations that are like in town here? They have Cable, which is a women's business organization. They probably have organizations in LA like to help mentor to
Oh,
get. So there's probably support organizations there for women, for minorities, for
the LGBTQ community,
so
everybody.
It's
Yeah.
it's
Whatever you can think of, they have it.
So
Yeah. I mean, it's.
that would be like before she decides where she wants to go. Like that would be something to research, right? And try to reach out even before she goes, right? Try to reach out to those organizations and kind of test the waters and say like, hey, here's my reel, here's my background, and here's what I want to do, because you like screenwriting, right? One of the things she likes to do.
Oh wow. Yeah, you do screenwriting. I mean, I might not even know 1 or 2 people that I could put you in touch with. Yeah, they're always looking there now. Screenwriting is one of those things. You either, like you can. Most of the time, you always start out as a writer's assistant, and they always kind of try and tell you exactly what they want to write, or you just ended up editing something and kind of prettying it up for them. And I know just from experience, and I'm not trying to like deter you in any way, but they can be difficult. The writers out there can be very difficult, especially working on the studio lots, because that's the easiest way to get a job, is working as a writer's assistant on a studio lot. But they do have other ones that you can find them. I mean, I've even seen postings for that on Production Hub and Entertainment Careers. I've seen writer's assistants jobs on there, and not working at a studio. Just you might be driving out to their house in Malibu every day. I know a buddy of mine got a job like that, working as a writer's assistant for, who was it? It was Susan Downey, who is Robert Downey Jr.'s wife.
Okay.
They live in Malibu, right there on the ocean, and she's a producer, and her writer that she works with a lot, a screenwriter, and I can't remember, I think it's a woman. I cannot remember her name, but a friend of mine actually went out there for an interview, and she pulled up to the gate, and, and pressed the buzzer or whatever, and they let her in, and she got up, and it's this huge house, walks up on the ocean, and she rang the doorbell, and Robert Downey Jr. actually answered the door, and she was like, and he's like, "You're here for so and so," and she's like, "Mm-hmm." He's like, "One moment," and he just goes and gets her, and they have their interview at Robert Downey Jr.'s house. It was super weird, but it's just, I can't tell you how many crazy stories I have, but working as a screenwriter, that's the easiest way to do it, is to working as a writer's assistant at a studio specifically. And it's not that hard, actually. It's a lot of busy work. It's a lot of, just go for, go for this, go for that, do this, do that, stuff that may not even have, and just going to get coffees all the time. May not have anything to do with writing. But
it's paying your dues.
if
right?
you,
It's paying your dues.
Yeah. If you stick with it and show you're committed, show your interest, and, they see that you're ambitious, and they see you're willing to do, whatever it takes, then, you'll get there. Yeah.
And Chris, any questions?
I can't really think of any.
So
But the one thing I was curious about is what does it mean when you say you work on titles? Like first.
Oh, titles? Oh.
Do you come up with the title name, or are you responsible for how it shows on the TV screen, or what does that mean?
Yeah, so I've probably thrown around title a lot. So basically, when I say I've worked on certain titles, like it's just the name of a movie or name of a TV show. That's what they call them. They just call them titles. But when I'm responsible, what specifically? What do you mean? Like just as what I did? Is that what I said? Like just.
Yeah, like, and then on your LinkedIn it says you worked like on titles like I saw like American Horror Story, Empire.
Oh yeah. So they're just the name of television shows. Yeah.
You come up with the name of it?
No.
You come up with the name of it?
No. They have creative people that do that. Like
you're working in the kind of the account supervisor, right?
I've worked in that, yeah, and at Fox I was a project manager, which I kind of had my hands in a lot out there. I worked with the marketing team a lot. I worked specifically because the first 2 years I was there, I worked on basically a lot of FX scripted shows. So I worked on Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I worked on Fargo at the time. I don't know if that's still being made or not, but I worked on Fargo. There was a few other ones that were FX, just specifically FX scripted shows. And then I switched over. I worked on Modern Family. I worked on, which is weird at first when I got out there because I was like, this show's on ABC. That's not even on this. Like, yeah, but it's a Fox show. It just airs on ABC. So I was like, oh, okay. But worked on Archer. Worked on Bob's Burgers. Worked on Simpsons for a minute. Worked on. It kind of switches around.
So that liaison role, though, right? You were talking about earlier. So when you first, working for the studios, looking for the liaison between the post house and then the studio, so that anything that you worked on, you could put down as a.
Yeah, even when like I ran out of stuff. I could ran out of room on a resume basically. Like you only put like the major stuff on there that you do, like your major. Probably the major. I'm trying to think of the word. Your major roles that you handle at that position, and because I did so many things, there's no way I could put them all on a resume. But you only put basically the major things that you do. But the first 2 years I was there, like I said, I worked on the FX scripted shows. I did this. Then I worked on some more Fox scripted shows, and then I started working on a bunch of feature films. I got lucky. I got to work on multiple Oscar-winning films. I worked on 12 Years a Slave. I worked on Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I worked on Shape of Water. I worked on The Revenant. I worked on. I'm trying to think. There's so many. It was coming down the timeline while I was there, but I did finishing work on some of those. Which, if you're not familiar with what you guys know what finishing is. Finishing work. It's basically when the title is completely over with, and it's basically maybe a few weeks before it hits theaters. It's director's final notes. So the director will have some final notes okay, I want this black clipped up a few more over here. It's a little bit too dark. Or I want, this scene before it transitions into this. I want this scene cut 3 frames. or it's tiny little stuff that no one would even think about, but it's called finishing. And the director will come in and sit in with you while you're doing it. So multiple directors, like for that movie Logan, I worked on that movie Logan with James Mangold. James Mangold would come in and we'd sit with him and do that kind of stuff. Before Blu-ray, which I guess, are they still making Blu-rays now? I don't.
Not that I know of. They might
But yeah, my age is showing now, but it's I'm getting up there now. But it's back when they were still doing DVD and Blu-ray. I actually was what they also called a menu producer. So whenever you put the DVD into your DVD player, all of the stuff that would come up, whether it was a scene and all the titles, the stuff you click on, all the different animation and all, I produced all that. So I would sit and talk with the director and marketing and creative and anybody else that might be involved, post-production team, and kind of come up with, we would produce all that kind of stuff and figure out how it was going to get made. I also worked on Fox's acquisitions, so I was basically in charge of all of their acquisitions for 3 years. So any kind of movie that the Fox just bought. So basically a movie would be made, it would already be done with. A lot of time it would go around the circuit, the film festival circuit. So it would go all around the film festival circuit, and then while it was going around film festival circuits, there's always production companies, they're looking to sell their production companies for distribution deals. So Fox, any of the movies that they would purchase as an acquisition for distribution, that would get sent to me, and then I would be in touch with the director, the producers, the post house, everybody. They would send all the elements, so the tapes, the files, whatever, all over to me. Then I would have to master them, so I would have to make a master Fox ProRes file, a master textless file, a master semi-textless file, and all the other elements that go with it, all the localization, whatever they wanted to do, all that jazz. So yeah, I've had my hands in a lot over the last decade plus.
So if Chris is so he clearly knows about Tyler Perry's studio and everything there. That's a big, and there's we were talking about, there's a lot of clearly there's a lot of hip hop, there's a lot of music videos being done there. So you're saying Atlanta's a really hot market, be a great place for him to.
Oh yeah. I have to look his name up now because it's been 2 years since I've talked to him. But there was a guy I used to work with at Sequitur, actually, that I think he's actually working with Tyler Perry now, down in Atlanta. But he was our producer's assistant while he was at Sequitur, and he left there because he's from Atlanta. We just went to Vanderbilt, so he went to school over at Vanderbilt, and then after he got done with his undergrad. He worked with us over there for like a year and a half, and then the pandemic hit, and believe it or not, I don't know if they're still up and running now or not, but the whole Sequitur, that place I work for, it just ceased to exist. Like, we lost over $11 million in 1 week worth of clients. So I went to work on a Monday, Wednesday, he sent everybody home because COVID was getting bad, and then by Friday morning, he decided to shut the company down. So all within a week, done. Yeah, it was nuts. So I think he's actually started running it now and doing stuff again, but I think he's got like a skeleton crew. It's not like a whole team of people working underneath him like he did before. But no, man, Atlanta would be an excellent place. They got post houses everywhere down there now, production houses. What are you kind of looking to get into?
I do mostly music videos and stuff like
You direct them or write what? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. There's so much hip hop down there and stuff. Yeah. I don't think you'd have a problem. Yeah. Be pretty easy to get started, probably. Actually, you probably just, I'm sure there's tons of clubs and stuff down there. You go hit up some of those clubs and talk. You meet with some other producers, basically, if you know any producers, or you find out these producer circles where they hang out or who they go to. Try and go and talk to some of them and tell them what you're up to and what you're doing. And spit some ideas at them and kind of see what they say, and also ask about new artists that they're working with. And that's kind of how the easiest way you're gonna get your foot in